From our partners at the Oklahoman, here are tomorrow's headlines tonight.
For the second year in a row, Metro Transit is cutting bus routes. 10 will be taken off the list for now because of budget shortfalls. The city's Asian district is booming with business. See how it's changed from a decaying part of town to a now thriving area. And with the new low-carb craze, nutritionists are looking at making changes to the food guide pyramid.
For more on these stories, pick up a copy of tomorrow's Oklahoman. Watch News 9 and go to our website, newsok.com. You're watching News 9 at 10.
Some CSI work right here in Oklahoma has a convicted killer hoping for a new trial.
In his trial, the prosecution painted Jimmy Ray Slaughter as a devil worshiper and the mastermind behind a heinous crime. But now, after all his appeals have been exhausted, and with an execution date about to be set, potentially new evidence comes to the surface. So should Slaughter get a new trial? Angela Buckaloo presents the facts. You be the judge.
Let's start with what this story is not about. Although you'll hear both sides, this story is not about a man's guilt or innocence. It is about whether he should get a new trial before he's put to death. A hot July day. Edmond, 1991. The scene of a brutal crime. A mother, Melody Wirtz, and her 11-month-old daughter, Jessica, murdered. The baby girl's dad, Jimmy Ray Slaughter, arrested, convicted in the longest trial in state history, sentenced to death for the slayings. He now sits on Oklahoma's death row.
My alibi was stronger than the accusation as far as I'm concerned.
I spoke to Jimmy Ray on death row. He maintains he was in Kansas at the time of the deaths, a claim his then wife backed up. Using the best science at the time, the prosecution contended a hair found on Melody's body matched that of Jimmy Ray's co-worker in Kansas and fell off while he committed the murders, placing him at the scene of the crime. But today's DNA testing proved otherwise.
It turns out that that's little more than a lie. We had the hair DNA'd, and it does not belong to the person who worked with Mr. Slaughter in Kansas. As of right now, we don't know who that hair belongs to.
I wasn't there, so I knew all along that was just garbage.
The state attorney general's office confirms it is now testing that hair as well.
Should he get a new trial because of that? No.
Oklahoma County District Attorney Wes Lane was a member of the prosecution team that tried Slaughter.
If we remove one brick out of a 3-story building, does the building fall? No.
Even if the hair doesn't match, he says there's still plenty of evidence to prove Slaughter did it, including
the knife that was used to mutilate Melody Wirtz was of the same configuration of a missing knife that Jimmy Ray Slaughter owned.
It is strongly my opinion that this man did not receive a fair trial. And
then Edmond homicide detective Dennis Dill had just had his hair cut when called out to the murder scene. It was no surprise to him the hair didn't match.
I had a lot of loose hair at the beauty salon on me. It could be my hair, it could be somebody else's that was there at the salon. I told them that, and that was just my opinion, that they needed to check that. Of course, they wouldn't do that. Yes.
Dill also takes issue with the prosecution's timeline, which had the murders happening around noon. But according to the autopsy report, the baby's stomach had noodles, peas, and carrots in it. Dennis says fed to her by the babysitter the night before. He says by noon they should have been out of her stomach, but they weren't, indicating she was killed many hours earlier.
I told the lieutenant, we have a problem here. These items that's in the baby's stomach, we need to find out how it got there.
The infamous noodles, peas, and carrots defense actually never helped Jimmy Slaughter. It actually would push him back into a time where he had no alibi, period.
The defense is also asking the court for a new trial based on a new technology called brain fingerprinting. Jimmy Ray Slaughter was given a list of statements about the Wirtz murders.
Where inside the house the infant victim was shot. What was printed on the front of the adult victim's T-shirt.
The electrodes on his head register certain brain waves that brain fingerprinting proponents claim can tell whether you're familiar with a crime scene. Slaughter's results?
There were things, obvious things about the crime scene that I simply did not know.
I tracked down and spoke to a juror who served in the Jimmy Ray Slaughter trial. I asked him, would any of this have made a difference to you? He said he didn't know. He'd have to look at all the evidence again, past and present.
There might be, in fact, with this evidence that we've uncovered, a reasonable doubt to this man's guilt. Right. And that's all we need. That's all we would have needed at that time.
Jimmy Ray Slaughter is overwhelmingly guilty, period.
Now out of appeals, Slaughter's attorney has asked the Court of Criminal Appeals to grant a new trial based on the hair, Officer Dill, and brain fingerprinting. Meanwhile, despite retesting the hair, the Attorney General's office has asked for an execution date, but one has not been set.
We'll keep you updated on what happens with that story. Turn now to weather and summary.
Yeah, very nice day.
It is. It's humid and it's summery.
Yeah,
We're finished.
Oh, gosh, we got a lot of extra time now.
Let's take a look at Viper. The thunderstorms, the reason I mentioned them in Kansas is that conditions are favorable for that activity to increase tonight in Kansas. And after that happens, one or two of those might drift into northern Oklahoma by morning. So if you hear some thunder up that way, don't be surprised. That is a possibility. All right, allergy situation. Since Friday, mold spores are up from low to moderate, and the grass up from moderate to high. So deteriorating conditions in the allergy situation. Well, this morning in Oklahoma City, 63. This afternoon, 84. Very humid, obviously. The records are 40. That's not showing up anytime soon. Most likely this will show up for too much longer. 96, though, the record high. We should be, as far as the high, be around 79. 73 presently at the airport. Southeast 14. Humidity way up there at 73%. Let's see how we look around the rest of the metro, and it's pretty much the same. 73 Piedmont, 73 Moore, 73 Midwest City. Shawnee, you guys are 72, and Mustang 71. The winds are still southerly and probably going to be that way for a while. Across the state, 79 Woodward and Altus, 78 at Tulsa, so it's very humid outside. It's tomorrow's going to be, we'll have variable clouds. We'll have some clouds around, then some sunshine, and be a mix of it. But we'll have some wind, really for the next few days. Right on through Friday, it's going to be somewhat windy. It will be pretty much on the warm side. It will be humid, and there will be a slight chance for some thunderstorms, primarily in northwestern and western Oklahoma tomorrow. Past that point, it's pretty shaky for a while. But anyway, we're mostly in the 70s. We're in the 90s in the Panhandle earlier today. That's about where the front is right now. That's about where it'll be in the morning, and it looks like there's that slight risk. A few showers, thunderstorms along that front and along the dry line, northwestern and western Oklahoma tomorrow evening, late tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. But I wouldn't bet the farm on it. I wouldn't hold my breath. Either one of those. Southerly winds 15 to 30 during the day on Wednesday, so we'll call it windy and somewhat warm. Lows tonight, gosh, 60s, 60s, pretty thick condition. Really, this is kind of a mix of springtime winds and we call it early summertime heat, and the wind is a mix of spring and June. So it's really a mixing pot. It has been for quite some time. 30% probability northwestern Oklahoma late tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, and this falls in the slight to very slight category, 20% from Elk City up to Weatherford and Clinton, up to Enid to Ponca City. And we'll see how we look for highs tomorrow, 80s, few 90s, so a bit hot with that humidity. And for noon tomorrow, 80. 5 p.m. tomorrow, 86. And we check out the 7-day, and it looks lonely. And here's our hot shot tonight, Amy. It's almost the dog days of summer.
Taking a dip in the pool. I like it. All right, Gary. Here's Kelly tonight with his 2 cents.
I wonder, is it possible that the events of the past week will confirm President Bush's arguments for going to war? When Colin Powell went to the UN, he made 2 points, that Saddam Hussein was hiding weapons of mass destruction and that he had links to terrorism. Today's explosion of a sarin gas-filled artillery round in Baghdad doesn't necessarily prove that there's any more, but it certainly raises the suspicion, doesn't it? We'll see if there's more to come on that in the coming days. And suddenly, terrorist Abu Musab al-Zarqawi is back in the news. And I say back in the news because before the war, Powell told the UN that Zarqawi, with strong ties to al-Qaeda, had apparently set up a base of operations in Baghdad. Back then, opponents scoffed at that, but they're not scoffing anymore. The tape of Nick Berg's beheading was labeled Zarqawi Slaughters American. Not only that, but today's assassination of the Iraqi Council's president apparently has all the trademarks of an al-Qaeda Zarqawi operation. Terrorism and chemical and biological weapons. Remember, that's primarily why we went to war with Saddam Hussein. The evidence is stronger, although admittedly not yet conclusive. I'm Kelly Ogle, and that's my 2 cents.